As much as I'm hyped to soon be playing Civilization VII, since I started this channel a couple of months ago, I've shared what excites me about the upcoming iteration of the game. I've also pointed out the misgivings I have about some of the aesthetic choices the design team have made, as well as some of the changes they have made to the game's mechanics. In sharing my own thoughts, viewers have reached out to share theirs. Since the birth of this channel, I've also begun posting on community forums dedicated to the Civilization franchise to get a deeper insight into what the sentiment is regarding the upcoming game. I'm always hit with a wave of excitement when I see a developer livestream or Firax's first look video before I take a deep breath and come back down to earth and gather my thoughts to dissect what is really going on. In an attempt to keep my finger on the pulse of the prevailing Civilization zeitgeist, I've discovered that there is one thing about the soon-to-be-released Civ 7 that has fans questioning whether or not it will be a game worth buying. Welcome to Civilization Stories, where we explore alternatives to history through the lens of the world's most addictive video game.
How do you sleep at night?
I'm a lucky guy. I'm an adult with a nice cushy job and a decent amount of free time on my hands.
On top of a pile of money with many beautiful ladies.
I don't go to bed at night on top of a pile of money with many beautiful ladies, but I have enough in the budget for the only video game I will buy all year. That's not true of everybody. I realize that there are some gamers out there shifting their hard-earned dollars around searching for the best games to spend them on. When it comes to a game like Civ 7, whose pre-release price, without the fancy bells and whistles of the deluxe or founders editions, is $70, Civ players want to make sure that that investment will be a safe one. They crave the reassurance that they will want to play for just one more turn again and again. Although one of the long-standing gripes among many Civ fans is the state of the AI, and I plan to make a video about that in the near future, for the most part, what seems to irk players about the upcoming Civ 7 has nothing to do with the AI, the game's design, or any of the new mechanics. Most seem more hopeful about what the game will offer players in the way of better graphics and new ways to outwit the AI or other human players. What appears to bother dedicated players the most is the fact that they have become accustomed to receiving a half-baked Civ game upon release. In the case of Civ 7, even before releasing the game itself, two separate sets of DLCs, The Crossroads of the World and Right to Rule, have been announced, with the first releasing as early as March 2025. It begs the question, why not just include the first DLC in the base game? Civ fans know the answer to this question. The answer is money. And many dedicated Civ fans see the sales strategy as an exploitive cash grab. Some of the most loyal Civ fans have been playing the game since the early 90s. They remember when games launched without needing to be patched or constantly updated. Although DLCs add depth and richness to a game, there's a limit to how much players will tolerate their wallets being tapped if they aren't being given a great game on release. And there seems to be a growing consensus that, since Civ 4, developers of the game have, little by little, inverted the pyramid whereby the base game gets weaker and weaker, making the game's reliance on its DLCs to be stronger and stronger.
You can shear a sheep many times, but skin him only once.
There is a balance to be struck with DLCs. They can make the game richer and keep designers employed for longer. But their addition to the game needs to add value to an already great game and should not be relied upon to make the game fun in the first place. Many players feel that with the sweeping changes that come with each new DLC, they are being asked to tolerate a lesser version of the designer's vision so that they can be milked again and again for a few dollars more each time. Many players have caught on, therefore, that the game does not cost just $70. It costs upwards of double that price when all of the DLCs containing all of the game's intended extra features are finally released. This content drip strategy has become the model for Civ games, and more players are catching on and developing an "I'll wait and see" attitude. There also seems to be a divide within the Civ community. You can be sure that I will make a video about that in the future. But I made a video that briefly explored even-numbered Civ games versus odd-numbered Civ games, and as I fall on the Civ 4 plus Civ 6 side of the divide, the backlash I received from fans of Civ 5 was eye-opening. It made me realize that devotees of a version of the game would prefer to play a full version of an older game than a half-built version of a new game. One need look no further than the re-emergence of the happiness mechanic and the widespread joy of players praising Civ 7's apparent return to a more realistic and less cartoonish art style to feel that the new game will be geared to giving fans of Civ 5 the satisfying sequel that they have been craving for over a decade and that Civ 6 could never offer. Let's take a closer look at Civ 6, since it is the most recent version of the game, and examine its DLCs. What I'll try to point out are the points of the DLCs that I imagine were always meant to be part of the game, and those that were added solely to add richness and depth, the latter being what should be the point of any DLC. Now, keep in mind that my initial playthrough of Civ 6 was mind-blowing. I loved it. For me, it was the follow-up to Civ 4 that I was always looking for. But I would contend that most, if not all, of the original Civ and scenario packs were meant to be part of the base game. Think about it. Alexander the Great, who previously led the Greeks in every version of Civilization, was only added as a separate pay-to-play DLC expansion. The same is true of Persia, who had been a staple of the Civilization series ever since Civ 2. To me, it's inconceivable that these leaders were omitted from the original design of the game and that they were added strictly to have players pay separately to use them. This was the first drip test for Firaxis, and I imagine that it worked. Genghis Khan, think about it for a second, was released with the Rise and Fall expansion. I would contend that there were other civs and leaders that were always meant to be part of the game, but were added later as pay-to-play items. Game mechanics that enriched the vanilla version, but that I imagine were always meant to be part of the game, were the Ages or Ears system, loyalty and governors, emergencies, the World Congress, and diplomatic victories. There are bells and whistles to some of these mechanics that I can conceive were included later in the design process to ease their inclusion, but from a holistic game perspective, I expect that they were always meant to be there. Eventually. In fact, I can imagine the Firaxis design team drawing up a timeline board of exactly when they are going to hit players with all of the features for Civ 7. It is only with Civ 6's new Frontier Pass and game modes that I feel we get into the real developer whimsy side of the game. These are all of the cutting room floor ideas, the B-sides, all of the fun ideas that got thrown into the mix and that didn't make the cut for the full game. Think about why every single one of them has a toggle. In fact, the toggle is an underused mechanic in helping players shape the gameplay experience that they want, and I think there should be more of them. Civ 4 allowed for mix and matching leaders so you could be Alexander the Great of the Mali. For Civ 7, that will be baked into the cake. Maybe add a toggle. Just saying. There's a lot I could and really want to say about this, but I want to keep this video short and focused. So, if the Civ 7 that we will see in 5 years has already been roadmapped, why not continue development and give players the full game at launch? Again, money. It will be interesting to see if at any point the content drip strategy finally exhausts players' goodwill. Obviously, the studio has invested enormous amounts of money and resources into making this highly anticipated version of the game. But where is the line that divides the return on a smaller and cheaper, incrementally better version of the game from a sweeping overhaul that needs to continually stoke the Civ players' lust for more content? What if the wait-and-see crowd wait for so long that the initial release doesn't recoup its investment? Where does the point at which the pursuit of attracting new players conflict too sharply with retaining loyal fans? Is there a version of the game that could unite new players and loyal Civ 5 and 6 players under one banner? Will there always be naysayers and old men yelling at clouds, pining for the old days when the game was more pure? I accept the fact that Civ 7 will not be all that it could be at release, but even in light of my skepticism and many criticisms, I do hope that it is great. The truest test for it will be how much of my attention it can steal from Civ 6. So, let me know how you feel about Civilization's current sales model. Do you fall under the "it's just the price of modern games" side, or do you feel that it's the deep pockets of greed rearing its ugly head once again? Let me know in the comments if you have purchased the pre-release version, if you will insta-buy, if you will wait and see, or if the Civ franchise has shaken your faith to the point of exhaustion. And until that day when Civ 7 does make it onto your PC or console, remember to keep making your own Civilization stories, your own amazing path through history, and I'll see you next time.